Hi, welcome everybody. My name's Rich Fine. I'm the lead volunteer for an Arbor Citizens Climate Lobby Building, Electrification, and Efficiency Action Team. So welcome. Great to have you here. Thanks for coming. I just want to mention that take care of a couple of housekeeping items to get this started. First of all, the session is both live and on Zoom. It is being recorded, and we'll be sending a link of the recording out to everyone who has registered. We'll be taking questions at the end of the presentations. There's 3 presentations. The questions from the live audience, we've put cards and pens on the table. If you could write your questions on those, and we'll collect them and read them. As for those who are on Zoom, you'll notice that there's no Q&A feature. You need a special license with Zoom. It turns out to have that. But post your questions to the chat area. We are asking that the chat area on Zoom be reserved for questions and not conversations. After the Q&A, this room will be open to everyone who wants to hang around on chat and socialize just like we were. We have some demonstrations in the back. Actually, before that, we're going to have a little drawing, which hopefully if you didn't fill out a form for the drawing, a ticket, please do so. They're over in that table in the corner. Let me see. Along with the scheduled speakers, we have Joe Lang from Ann Arbor's Office of Sustainability. Joe, you want to just say hi there? So if you have some questions specific to the city's efforts as opposed to general questions, Joe might be able to help you with that too. Little other housekeeping item, if you're not aware of where it is, the restrooms are through this door over here, and you go primarily to the left. I want to thank a lot of people who helped make this happen. First of all, Melissa Rumbach with Venue for arranging the food and the beverages. Matt Chattis, who helped us with the technology, getting all of the connections going. Special thanks to Venue proprietor Heidi Posher, who provided the room and the beverages. Thank you very much. We also want to extend a special congratulations to her. Her development company, Prentice 4M, just received the city's approval for a large multifamily development that will use geothermal, solar, mass timber construction, and of course, will be all electric. Finally, I'd like to make a thank you to all the CL volunteers who worked to make this project happen. I'm not going to, there's a lot of them, I'm not going to run off their names, but they helped plan it, promote it, publicize it, figured out how to use Zoom to have it here and remotely. It's not as simple as you might think. Planning demonstrations in the back. For all of you who are here, and I know some of you couldn't make it to, but for all of those who are here, if you could just stand up, just so we know who you are. Come on. Volunteers, stand up. John. So, okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to go to our first speaker, and that is Kevin McNeely. He's an energy auditor. Kevin founded McNeely Building Group in 2005 with the belief that all homes should be 2 things: energy efficient and comfortable. This belief came from growing up in a nice home that was uncomfortable in the cold of winter and the heat of the summer, and it led him to search out building performance experts to learn from. It became apparent that there were very few companies or individuals at that time experienced in the science of building performance. Fast forward, 2023, Kevin is now considered a leader in the Great Lakes region for advancing building performance and building science in both single family and multi-family spaces. He has earned multiple certifications and attended hundreds of hours of training and conferences focused on business science and performance, all while not falling asleep. Kevin volunteers with several organizations and currently serves on the board of the U.S. Green Building Council Detroit region, chairs the Ann Arbor 2030 District Multifamily Work Group, and Hope Village Initiative in Detroit to help advance the performance of all residential buildings in the region. Kevin?
Let's see if this works. Are you driving or am I driving? Oh, there we go. Okay, so these are, I lied. There we go. All right, so these are some of my credentials. It's just they're basically kind of all the same, just a little tweak here or there depending on the governing body. It's when I got started, people would come to me with a certification program they wanted me to work under. If I didn't have the certification, the answer was yes, I'll do it, and then figure out how. When it comes to energy efficiency, making homes more energy efficient, this thing doesn't like me. Oh, I see. All right, you're driving. Go ahead, go to the next slide. Okay, so when it comes to energy efficiency in any building, buildings are always going to use the same amount of energy. It's just whether or not the mechanical equipment, how efficient it is, but the energy demand is always the same in the building. There's two ways to reduce the actual energy demand in a building: air sealing and improving the insulation. That's it. Okay. So the cheapest and most effective way to improve the energy efficiency is air seal, air seal, air seal. And if somebody tells you that you're going to make the building too tight, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay. After that, you improve the insulation, and sometimes tying the two together is the way. So you want to air seal around your insulation before you, while you're installing or correcting things. Go ahead, go to the next slide. So I just have a bunch of photos with examples here. So this one in the upper left-hand corner is a rim joist. That's the area where your floor sits on your basement, on your foundation. In this particular house, they had jammed moving blankets up in the bays between the floor joists. In the lower right is a thermal image of that, and I did not have a blower door going at the time. It was a relative, not cool day, but it was a warm summer day. It was not overly hot. And you can see U-Haul does have a reduce and reuse on their blankets. So they took that to heart. Go ahead, go to the next slide, please. So this is what I call framing origami. And this is a very difficult area to air seal and insulate. Specifically the two boxes, the two little alcoves that are in the wall. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is the slope section of the ceiling that you see right next to that closet. It is just the sun is beating down on that, and the insulation, because it is not installed correctly, is not doing the job that it's supposed to do. So you're going to get heat gain through those in that area specifically. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And then this is a ceiling. So this is a ceiling underneath conditioned space, but there is a porch roof that comes down. So we are getting air leakage in the thermal image. You can see the air leakage coming between the floor joists. So even though it's conditioned space above, you need to pay attention to what's outside. A lot of times when they frame roofs, they don't take care of the air sealing because they figure it's in an attic space. Next slide. This is a ceiling fan in a bathroom. And you can see that we are leaking hot air through the ceiling fan, and then in all the joist bays, again, air leakage, and it's not allowing the insulation to perform correctly. If there is conditioned space above this, and the rim joist might not have been insulated there. If it was, they probably used fiberglass and did not. Fiberglass needs to be air sealed on all 6 sides, top, bottom, left, right, front, and back for it to work properly. And so they probably did not do that here. Next slide. This is one of my favorites. This is a cathedral ceiling, and it's just a hot mess, literally. It speaks for itself. You can see what's going on there. But if they had air sealed, so this is there's a ceiling plane just above the closet door. In the picture to the left, there's a ceiling plane just above that. If they had air sealed that, to help to air seal in the insulation that's on the back side of this knee wall, it would have helped out a significant amount. Next slide. And then this is air leakage. So I have the blower door running here. So that's a blower door fan running, or not running, but that's what I would use to depressurize the house. You can, when you're doing air leakage checks, you can use a box fan from Home Depot and just set it up in a door and seal around it. You don't need someone to come in with a fancy piece of equipment. All you need to do is to move air out of a room or out of the house. So this is air leakage from an attic space through a door and around the trim. So the wisp on the left-hand side is the air moving along the wall plane, and then the bright light to the right of the trim there is air leaking around the door and coming in. When we do a blower door test, we depressurize the house and simulate a 20-mile-an-hour wind on the house. Go ahead and next slide. So the picture on the left is really, it's a dark paneling, but it is an interior door. In the thermal image, the dark purple right there is where the door latch catches. And so what's happening is when the wind blows on the house, or when I'm depressurizing with the fan, I'm drawing air through all of the interior walls, and it's coming out through that door. That's one of the last places that people think to look. Next slide, please. This is another knee wall. So you can see in the triangle on the left, we got a little slope ceiling over there. They 100% miss the insulation in that. Next slide. And then this is another interior wall. We can see this is during the winter time. We can see little, on the lower right-hand side, little cold wisp coming in. Again, I got the blower door running, but if the wind is blowing at 15 miles an hour or so, it's going to have the same effect on the house. So you need to pay attention to not only the exterior walls, but the air sealing you need to pay attention to your interior walls also. Next slide. And then this is underneath a windowsill. So painters, when they paint, they caulk the sides, but they never caulk the top and the bottom of the trim because you never see it. But this is air bleeding through underneath the window assembly and coming out behind the trim, the apron there. How am I doing on time? Okay, next slide. And then this is a sample. So once you get all your air sealing done and your insulation, all your upgrades done, that's the time to replace the mechanical equipment. Don't do it before. And this is a sample manual J. I know it's kind of hard to see, but on the left-hand page there, that's a summary of what the house is going to use. And then down on the lower half of the left-hand page is a room-by-room assembly, or room-by-room, where it tells you how many BTUs each room needs, what the CFM should be, so on and so forth. And then on the right, it gives you a breakdown of your loads in the pie charts. This is required by code, but nobody ever does it. It's never enforced. So there's manual J, manual D, and manual S. J is the loads of the house. D is your duct design. That's primarily for new construction, or if you are doing duct replacement. And then the manual S is the equipment selection. So the equipment selection is important, especially with air conditioning. There's two pieces of temperature that the air conditioner is responsible for: your thermostat set point and the humidity in the house. But again, it is to reduce the energy demand of the house, not what the mechanical system uses. Two ways to do it: air sealing and improve your insulation. Next slide. And that's it. I actually got through that. I can talk for a very long time on this. Rich told me that I had 20 minutes, so I'm like, oh, I got to get going. So yeah, here's my contact information. I do have a couple sample reports back over there. I did not bring business cards, but I have a QR code. If you're fancy and can use a QR code, it'll dump my contact information. Other than that, reach out to Rich. If you don't get it that way and you don't get it from me tonight, Rich knows how to get in touch with me. So that's what I got.
Thanks, Kevin. By the way, later on in the presentation, there is going to be a QR code on there that's going to have contact information for several CCL volunteers, along with a host of other information as well. I do want to mention that since our next speaker is going to be talking about the Inflation Reduction Act and the incentives that are with that. So it's okay. Is that having an energy audit is a very important, critical, necessary first step as you're looking to improve the efficiency of your home. And the Inflation Reduction Act does include a $150 tax credit towards that. So you will encounter savings. Yes.
Improving a room, let's say you're redoing the kitchen, you have 2 exterior walls. If you take the cabinets down, take the drywall down, it's cheap. Do your insulation, make the improvement in that area, your kitchen. But you don't have to do everything all.
Okay, next speaker is, one moment, please. Evie Baumann. Evie is manager of local engagement for Rewiring America. Rewiring America is a nonprofit with a mission of electrifying our homes, our businesses, the communities by converting the 1 billion fossil fuel burning appliances and machines, and that's just in the United States, to electric alternatives to help save money, tackle nationwide emissions, improve health, and build the next generation of the clean energy workforce. Evie spent most of her life in Indiana. By the way, I don't know, I'm from Ohio. I don't know if I lose points for that, but so Indiana, I think, is a little closer. Anyhow, prior to working at Rewiring America, she worked as the director of sustainability for the city of South Bend, Indiana. And in that role, she always admired and followed closely the city of Ann Arbor's leadership in local climate action. Today, Evie will be reviewing the benefits of electrification, federal resources to support electrification, and some of the strategies and tools to help you electrify your home and your community.
Thank you, Rich. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm going to take that as a yes. Our Zoom people can hear me. Hopefully the audience in Ann Arbor can hear. Okay, I'll move forward. Thank you so much for the introduction. Again, my name is Evie, and I'm really excited to be talking with you all tonight about mobilizing for community electrification. First, I want to give a quick background on the organization that I work for called Rewiring America. We were founded in 2020 with a very simple idea: electrify everything. And how this mission came about was because one of our founders included a consultant to the Department of Energy who mapped out the US's entire energy ecosystem. So he looked at the supply side, coal plants, nuclear, hydropower, solar and wind, and also all of the machines we use on the demand side of the equation. And he even went as far to analyze how much energy your toaster uses, to how much energy it takes to make steel and more. And right now, most of that energy is generated from fossil fuels. And so much of that energy is wasted. About 60% of the fuels that we use to generate our electricity gets wasted as heat. And almost 80% of the energy that we put into our cars in the form of gasoline or diesel is also wasted. But if we electrified everything and then powered all of those machines with renewable energy, there'd be much less waste. And that's because renewables convert energy to electricity far more efficiently than their fossil fuel counterparts. So merely by swapping out fossil fuel powered appliances for electric ones, we estimate that we could use half of the energy without you having to sacrifice or change your home, your car, your habits, and more. And we already know how to produce clean electricity. Because of lots of government investments in the past, it's increasingly become the cheapest electricity source. So you may be able to purchase solar, wind, hydropower, or put up your own solar panels or tap into geothermal energy. I heard the reference to the geothermal project in Ann Arbor before, and I know you all are leading in that space as well. So when our founder, Saul Griffith, mapped out those energy flows, he found that about 42% of our energy-related emissions come from decisions that are made around the kitchen table. And so this includes how we heat and cool our homes, how we cook our food, dry our clothes, and get around. And it's a huge opportunity to take meaningful personal action. And this is one decision that will last for about 10 to 15 years based on the lifetime of that appliance that can have a super significant impact on carbon emissions reductions than tiny decisions that we make every day. And at Rewiring America, we really do care about getting you to focus on the things that matter most and give you the biggest bang for your buck. And so to do this electrification, you'll need to replace any machine that currently burns fossil fuels with a new efficient electric one. And so we've highlighted some of the machines here. We highlight solar panels, switching out your gas stove to electric induction stoves, dryers, but you might also be considering battery storage and also switching to an electric vehicle. So many machines encompassed in all of the machines that we can switch from fossil fuels to electric ones. I'm going to highlight a few of them in a bit more detail in these slides, so what we're calling the key technologies, and ones that I will reference when we go through all of the incentives available from the Inflation Reduction Act in just a moment. So the heat pump listed here, shown here, is not the heat pump of 20 years ago. This is not a new technology. They work across all temperate zones and in cold climates like Minnesota and Maine. In fact, we've seen a huge adoption in the state of Maine. They've surpassed their statewide goal of heat pump adoption. So it's really an inspiration for other states that are in colder climates and are concerned about the technology performance. We've seen a lot of advancement in this particular space and equipment. And again, 3 times more efficient than a fossil fuel electric furnace, heats and cools your home. So we're working with some communities across the US that do not have AC in their home. And as extreme heat becomes more and more common, we're seeing that a heat pump can provide valuable resilience benefits in providing air conditioning for those folks who are vulnerable to extreme heat. Next, we're focusing on the heat pump water heater. This also is 3 times more efficient than a fossil fuel water heater, still gives you all the warm showers that you need. And it also can be a mini AC because it does provide some cool air in the area in which it's installed. Another key technology that we want to highlight are induction stoves. These are very responsive, fast, and very easy to clean, more precise than gas stoves. In fact, they are outperforming gas stoves in every category of consumer testing. They do help improve air quality in your home, and they also avoid unnecessary heat and burns. My parents just switched from a gas stove to an induction cooktop, and they love it. It took some time to learn about the new technology, but they're really grateful because they welcomed their first grandchild into the world about 8 months ago. And so now when Margaret comes to visit their house, there are no concerns about her going near the stove or touching anything because it's all magnetic, and there's no risk of her burning from the cooktop itself, which is really exciting. And I also want to highlight an advancement that one of the folks who used to work at Rewiring America is focused on now full-time. He is incorporating batteries into induction stoves, so they too can serve as a resiliency mechanism in your home for when outages happen. We've heard that a lot of hesitation around switching from a gas or propane stove to an electric one is that you lose the capacity to use it in an outage if you don't have any backup power. So there are new innovations on the way that would allow you to still use your stove and plug in life-saving appliances in the case of an outage. I'll flag it's very expensive technology right now, still in the works, but we hope that that will become available at a more affordable rate very soon. And last but not least, here on the key technologies, a heat pump dryer, also more efficient than a fossil fuel dryer. You don't need to cut a vent through the exterior walls of your home. You don't need a gas hookup. And in many cases, they don't require wiring, and they also cause less damage to your clothes. And while Rewiring America is very much focused on the residential home piece, we do acknowledge electric vehicles play a huge role in reducing our emissions and have a lot can result in a lot of cost savings too, from saving from buying gasoline. And they also drive very smoothly, accelerate quickly, and have a lot of high-tech features. And some also are now providing that battery backup in case of a power outage. I think the new Ford 150 can provide power for 3 to 5 days for a home. So there are some resiliency benefits there too. So overall, Rewiring America is really focused on electrification because we see it as a story of economic renewal and community infrastructure. This is a new climate future that's possible. Electrification has the potential to lower your energy costs, but I do want to flag here that it looks different across the country. We have a term called the spark spread, which means when we're assessing what is the price of gas compared to the price of electricity, in many states, it is hard to make the numbers pencil out. To the previous presentation, it's critical to do that air sealing and insulation work first as well to help you get there with the economics and right sizing that machine equipment. As was mentioned, was really excited to hear the manual J mentioned because we suggest that for everybody that is pursuing a heat pump in their home. We ask that you require your contractor to do a manual J calculation. So really excited to see that highlighted. But just want to flag that it can be very cost savings, especially when shifting from an electric resistance, inefficient heating system in your home to a heat pump, which is much more efficient than that, or potentially switching from delivered fuels to a heat pump. And then in many instances where gas is more expensive than electricity, you can see significant cost savings, especially when it comes to space heating and cooling. Healthier homes, again, air pollution indoors, very much reduced, fewer asthma-causing emissions, and then the climate benefit too. We do think that we can actually zero out the emissions we generate with machines in our daily lives. And in general, drive more local jobs to carry out all of these projects to electrify every home. So as mentioned in the introduction about Rewiring America, these kitchen table decisions need to lead to 1 billion machines being replaced or installed in order to meet our 1.5 degree warming goals. So at Rewiring America, we have done a little bit of the math, and we talk about this opportunity as the pace of progress that we need to achieve to net zero emissions from residential buildings by 2050. And we quantify the opportunity in the immediate term. So here we showcase the 3-year business as usual case in terms of who is adopting these key electric technologies, and then what we would need that climate target to be in order to meet our pace of progress. So the slide is quite dense, but the point here is that our sales penetration needs to outpace the climate targets. And that's because the machines being replaced often have a lifetime of about 15 years or more. So we need all new machine sales to be electric by about 2035 to meet the goal of an all electric machine stock by 2050. So viewed here at the national level, we need to essentially triple the pace of electric adoption across all of these major home appliance and machine categories to jumpstart this market and be on track as we near the end of the decade. So this is the data that we at Rewiring are holding ourselves accountable to. We're building this infrastructure to track the capabilities and to demonstrate progress across the country towards these targets. But there's great news. The Inflation Reduction Act, as mentioned, has already jump-started this movement in every community in the nation. So this law provides rebates, tax credits, grants, low-cost financing for heat pumps, heat pump clothes dryers, heat pump water heaters, electric induction stoves, upgraded breaker boxes, electric vehicles, solar, and storage. At the same time, it also has very powerful incentives for the supply side for renewable sources. And also, if there are contractors in this audience, it's great news because this creates a market demand for these machines. And we have special resources for you if you are a contractor. Let us know. So electrification is becoming increasingly accessible to all. The upfront costs can be steep, but thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, the average household has about $10,600 in new federal incentives to electrify. We like to call this their electric bank account, their electric wallet, an electric stipend. And this could ramp up to over $500 billion in cumulative investment in communities across the US. So getting into the weeds about the incentives available through the Inflation Reduction Act, they primarily fall under two categories. There are tax credits, and these are likely going to be accessed by homeowners with higher incomes. And then there are rebates, which will provide point of sale discounts on appliances and upgrades. And those will likely benefit low income and middle income Americans the most. I'm going to go through them in a little bit of detail, but then I'm also going to highlight Rewiring America's tool to help you digest all this information. So no need to take notes right now. This is all available to you online in an even better and more comprehensible way than what I'll share. So I just want to flag that up front. But a quick overview of those tax credits that are available. The Energy Efficiency Tax Credit, or 25C. This is a 30% tax credit for residential efficiency and electrification upgrades. It can be worth up to $3,200 per year. And that it's available to anybody with enough federal tax liability, including renters, and it's available now through 2032. So this includes covering the purchase and installation of heat pumps and heat pump water heaters for up to $2,000 tax credit per year. But then there are additional dollars to cover if you need an electrical panel upgrade and other associated work with that upgrade. 25D, the Clean Energy Credit, is an extension of the energy credit that existed that was about to be phased out, and it has now been brought back up to 30% and more inclusive of other clean energy technologies. So this is a 30% tax credit for the purchase and installation of solar panels, geothermal heat pumps, and battery storage. Again, anybody with enough tax liability, federal tax liability, can take advantage of this, including renters. It's available now through 2034. And because it is an extension of a previously existing credit, it is retroactive to 2022. And this credit is uncapped and can be carried forward. That's important to note because unlike the tax credit 25C, you cannot carry this forward and it is not refundable, but you can do it once a year. Now moving into EV discounts and the credits available for clean vehicles, there is a $7,500 tax credit for purchasing a new electric vehicle. Most households are eligible. The credits are income limited and the manufacturer's suggested retail price limited as well. These are available till 2032. And important details that only vehicles that meet the critical mineral, battery component, and final assembly requirements qualify. There's a link to the list of qualifying vehicles there. This presentation will be shared with you. You will also be able to find it on our website. And the credits will be transferable to dealers starting in 2024. So this will essentially convert it into an upfront discount. So right now, only about 10 EVs qualify for the full credit. 8 are all electric and 2 are plug-in, but more will qualify in future years. And then there is also a credit for previously owned clean vehicles. This is a $4,000 tax credit for purchasing a used EV, again, available to most households. Similar limitations around the income and the price of the vehicle, available through 2032. And these are also transferable to the dealer starting next year. Now, the 2 flagship home energy rebate programs of the Inflation Reduction Act are listed here. The first one is around electrification appliances. This program has been called HERA. Most recently, I heard HERE last week on a call with the Department of Energy. I think they've been noodling around with what's the best fit for the name, but the point is these are for electrification. These are point of sale rebates that could total up to $14,000 for electric appliances, including heat pumps, heat pump hot water heaters, induction stoves, electric panel upgrades, and rewiring. These are for low and moderate income households. And it is up to Michigan State Energy Office to finalize this program, design it, and distribute these rebates. We expect nationwide a rollout late this year, if not in 2024. 100% of project costs are covered for low-income households, and 50% are covered for middle-income households. I also want to flag that I have heard recently that Ann Arbor is also working on a rebate program as a city. So you will hopefully be able to stack their rebates on with these. In fact, I'm sure the city's program will inform how the state rolls out their program. But please feel free to ask the city more about what to expect there. The other bucket of home energy rebates are efficiency rebates. This program has been called HOMES. This is rebates for large-scale projects that verifiably improve a home's energy efficiency. This is available for everyone, and then there are rebates for low-income households that are doubled. Also, this is up to the state energy offices to finalize this program. Similar expectations for timeline to roll out. Here, consumers have 2 ways to claim this rebate. You can do the modeled pathway or the measured energy savings pathway. And so the total rebate amount a consumer qualifies for depends on this route. So modeled would mean an energy auditor with many of the credentials that were listed in the previous presentation could provide you with an assessment that says, by doing this project, we expect to see a 15% energy savings for your home, 20%, 30%, and you get increasing amounts of funding depending on the expected amount of energy savings. The DOE, the Department of Energy, is finalizing what software is needed to make that assessment. These details are still being fleshed out, so there's not a ton of clarity yet, but there will be over the next few months, especially. Or the measured pathway would be to prove that by doing this project, I saved this much energy in my home and can claim the credit, the rebate, excuse me. And these can be up to $8,000. So that was a lot of words from me, some slide help, but what explains it much better is Rewiring America's Inflation Reduction Act savings calculator. And I know I'm almost at time, so I'll do a quick demonstration, but want to carve out time for questions and answers and not bleed into the next presentation. But here I have, can everybody see this? Yes, I see it coming on the main screen. You can go to rewiringamerica.org/app IRA calculator and see how much money you personally can get with the Inflation Reduction Act. Fill out your homeowner status, the tax filing status, size, income, zip code, email if you want, get a summary. Again, these are estimates of what you could be eligible for, but I really want to highlight here what is available in terms of electrification rebates that we just talked about. You can see that the anticipated timeline, I think because, there we go, I'll spread it out this way. The amount is listed here, and when you can expect to receive it is listed here. If you click on more information, we have full pages to explain this technology, the upfront discounts that are available through the Inflation Reduction Act, the tax credits that we mentioned, an estimated cost. Again, this is nationwide, very not localized at this point in time, but then you get details about the technology, how it can save you money, how is it better for the environment. And we have this for all of the major electric technologies. So I really encourage you to check this out. And I'll keep moving because I know I've hit now the 20-minute mark. Want to preview a more advanced version of this tool that Rewiring America is coming out with. We call it our personal electrification planner. We are hoping to launch a version of this in the fall. This will be more localized to your particular home. We'll take data about the building stock in your geography and as much information as you're able to share with us, and make some smart assumptions about your home to guess your energy savings that are possible through electrification and help you map out each of your steps. So if you've already procured an electric vehicle, great. What's next? Let's help you think through the costs and associated things to prepare for. Our eventual version of this will ideally include all available incentives, federal, state, local, utility incentives, help you scope out qualified projects and even connect you to contractors, build a community that's doing this work. That's for a future version, but that is the vision of this tool. And now the last few things that I want to leave you with is how you can take action. What's your role? First and foremost, please spread the word about all of these incentives. Help your friends, family, and neighbors understand how and why to electrify. We do want you to be this person. All you ever talk about is heat pumps. We are also happy if you talk about induction stoves. We need a ton of enthusiasts to make this transition possible. We also encourage you to contact your local contractors to let them know you would like to go electric. And call your electricians, HVAC companies, plumbers, ask them about these appliances. And if you meet any resistance, you can let them know about the incentives that are coming through the Inflation Reduction Act. And there's a lot of business that could be missed if they aren't prepared for this. And ask them what plans you need to make to be ready to electrify if they're able to help you. And last but not least, contact your local government. Again, Ann Arbor is a leader in this space. A number of your city council officials, city staff are part of our local government leaders for electrification. But if you are tuning in from elsewhere, please encourage your local leaders to get involved. We convene this group of electrification-minded government leaders to talk about how to do electrification at a community level. And this is my email, evie@rewiringamerica.org. Happy to answer questions via email and grateful to share all of this with you today.
Thank you, Evie. It's great. So, our next speaker is Matt McCabe. Before I provide an introduction, just wanted to cover a couple of points. First of all, Evie had mentioned the induction burners, cooktops. We do have an induction cooktop, a single burner one in the back. And when this is over, if you'd like to go over there and see one of these live doing work and how fast it I guess boils water right now is what we have. We're more than welcome to provide that to you. In addition to that, if you have questions right now for either of the first two speakers, or as Mac is talking as well, please turn in some of your cards now so that we'll be able to look at them. Yes. Yeah, right. Melanie can do that. So, okay. And so anyhow, moving on, our next speaker is Mac McCabe. Mac is the contractor account manager with Michigan Saves, which is a nonprofit green bank dedicated to the advancement of clean energy. Mac is responsible for recruiting contractors to educate them on the benefits of electrification and to make sure they are happy using Michigan Saves financing options. He's been in the energy efficiency business for 20 years, first as a contractor and now with Michigan Saves, and he's going to talk about their financing programs as well as selecting a contractor. So thank you.
Yes, thanks, Rich. Hey, really appreciate that. Thank you for the introduction. So by a show of hands, who has heard of Michigan Saves before? Fantastic. Okay. So I'm going to do this real quick then. So we are a nonprofit green bank, and we are dedicated to the advancement of energy efficiency and renewables, and we do that through financing. So how we do that is we have what's called a loan loss reserve. So we have a big pile of money in the bank, and we go out to local credit unions and financial organizations and say, give me below market rates and the lowest credit requirements. And in exchange for that, we would pay a certain percentage of any loan that defaults. So basically we reduce their risk, they give us best rates, and we pass that on to you. It's a competitive advantage. It really is. I mean, we're putting our foot on the scales of energy efficiency, and you can't just use, and you can't install like an 80% efficient furnace, right? It has to be a high efficiency unit. You can't just go with the lowest efficient, appliance, right? It has to be high efficiency in order to get to use this financing. And we're local, right? Michigan Saves is local. All of our credit unions are local. It's one of the benefits of using Michigan Saves. But the most important, can you switch the slide there? Oh, I guess I can do it. So we have an unsecured loan. So Michigan Saves loans are unsecured. Means there's no collateral, up to $100,000. We do a lot of solar projects that kind of exceed that number. And we have loan terms, which is really important, especially when you're talking about electrification. We have our terms up to 25 years. So if you were doing like a heat pump, could be on a 15-year term. For solar is the only one we do 25-year terms. But when you get out to terms that long, it's like a utility bill swap, right? Because that's about the lifespan of the solar panels. So you can install solar and it would be equal to or less than what your existing utility bill is when you're doing a 25-year term. So our interest rates right now are high, right? Higher than they have been in the past, but so has everything. And our rate of, obviously we're getting below market rates. So 7.99% to 11.5% is where we're at right now. And I know nobody's used to that yet. Can we go to the next slide? So the big benefit of Michigan Saves and how we have been involved with Ann Arbor's program, right? They have an energy advisor program where they're going to do something like an energy audit, that Mr. McNeely talked about, and then also get contractors to give bids, and they'll kind of help you through the whole process of energy audit, getting bids, doing the install, and what measures you should do first. And it's all tailored to this specific person. It's a fantastic program. They are in pilot. It's coming soon. I'm sure everybody will know about it when it does. But Michigan Saves is a group of contractors. So not anybody can just be a Michigan Saves contractor. So in order to use our financing, you have to be licensed, you have to be insured, and you have to have a good track record. So we prevent contractors that we feel are not above board, so to speak, from becoming an authorized contractor. And for instance, Power Home Solar, they were knocking on our door for years. Power Home Solar, or Pink Energy, they changed their name. They're going bankrupt. And they had really bad sales practices, and we did not allow them to come in, and we kick out, 1 or 2 contractors a year. So it's a vetted group of contractors, and we have developed in anticipation of electrification. And this was all from Ann Arbor. This was before the IRA was even a thing. We started an electrification badging program because we knew that decarbonization, or I should say Ann Arbor, was very instrumental in decarbonizing the housing stock. And we know that the contractor is the linchpin to the whole thing. We can have incentives for the initial cost. We can have special rates for electricity that reduce the cost of, using those appliances. But you really have to have a contractor base that knows what they're doing. Switching from a heated or a gas-fired furnace to a heat pump is a really different game. It changes the duct system dramatically. It changes your electrical system dramatically. And if you don't have contractors that know what they're doing, they're going to give the entire electrification a bad name. And so what we did in conjunction with Ann Arbor is Michigan Saves put together an electrification badging program. And we came up with 5 videos that these contractors have to watch. They have to take 5 tests. They have to score 80% or higher on each one of the tests. And if they do all that, then they get this electrification badge. And they can use it on their websites. They can use it in their marketing, but more importantly, it's on our contractor locator. So when you go to michigansaves.org and you click find a contractor, you can select electrification and it will show you all of the companies that have, you know, the electrification badge. Or you can type in heat pump and you'll see everybody that does heat pumps, and then you can pick out the ones that have the electrification badge. Oh, can you go to the next slide? This is what it looks like. I know nobody can see that. I can't see it, but that's basically the, that is what it looks like when you're looking at the contractor locator. So these contractors that are part of the electrification program, we are constantly changing and increasing the requirements to become an electrification badge contractor, because contractors want leads. They want your business, and they're eager to get it. And so what we did is we keep kind of ramping it up. We originally just wanted people to watch our videos, but now we are making mandates that they do certain things, right? That they, that the solar system is producing what they say it's going to be. And you know, that they have installed X amount of heat pumps that are replacing furnaces, not just, you know, adding a heat pump to an attic or a bonus room. So the contractors, you know, when we initially launched the program, we had a lot of problems. Like we had people that were saying, hey, this contractor was talking me out of a heat pump and he has an electrification badge. And these are the guys that know, right? And as part of our program, we are breaking down those barriers. We are saying, like, it used to be any place north of Cincinnati, you can't use a heat pump. It just doesn't work. And they've heard that from their fathers and their family businesses. And everything's changing, right? This inverter driven technology really changes the game. And we have to teach the contractors that. So we were, even though they had a badge, people were still being talked out of electrification because contractors make money selling furnaces. Their techs know how to service them. There's a lot of legacy that goes with the furnace, and the heat pumps are new. And we have to teach these contractors that they can make money doing this. So because that's what they're doing it for, right? They're not doing it to save the planet. They're doing it to feed their families. And if we can show them that this is a great way that you can make money and be on the cutting edge and increase your business, well, we want to do that. And this is what this electrification badge is all about. It's what Michigan Saves is all about, because, you know, we want to be part of the solution to this problem. And we feel it all starts with the contractor. They're the people that you trust, right? When somebody comes into your house and looks at your duct system and does a manual D and says, hey, listen, we're going to have to rip out some of your ductwork in order to make this to work. You trust them. You trust that they know what they're talking about. So when you go to do anything from an electrical panel upgrade to a solar panel system to a heat pump, use the Michigan Saves contractor locator. You don't have to use I mean, obviously we would love you to use our financing, but you know, it's there if you need it, because electrification is not cheap, right? In order to reduce your load by air sealing and insulation and putting in a heat pump and adding a solar system, you're talking about a lot of money. It will pay off at the end, but the cost up front is overwhelming. I just did most of what I'm preaching right now. So I just put a heat pump water heater in my house first, and it made my basement really cold. So I had to open up a heat duct that I normally didn't have because I didn't expect it to be that cold, and my kids like to play in the basement. So that was one thing I didn't expect. I self-installed a 12 kilowatt solar system, and it was a big project. It was a big cash outlay. I took out a Michigan Saves loan, and it's been paying off. It's been working. And as soon as the heat pump incentives come out in 2024 in January, I'm going to put a heat pump on top of my furnace. And I'm doing that because I have a brand new furnace and I can't do it. There's something in my financial brain that says I'm not ripping that out, but I can put a heat pump on top of it. And when that furnace goes bad, I'll use the heat pump for the whole thing, because there is a green premium to heat pumps. And I thank Evie for being very transparent that in Michigan, we have a utility that charges us a lot of money for electricity. So when you have a 22 cent per kilowatt hour from DTE, it's hard to make a heat pump make sense. And when you stick it on top of a furnace and it gets really cold and your heat pump is really inefficient, your furnace can kick on and take care of that really low temperature, but you use it for, 80% of the time. And that's a really good way to step in. It also is a way for people to feel comfortable not having that, that backup. Because if you go straight heat pump, you're going to have electric resistance heat backup. And well, if you're loading a house, a 10 kilowatt system, it's not only expensive, but it's also not, when you need the load the most, right? When it's negative 20 degrees outside, that one strip is not going to cover the load to your house. So there's a lot of nuance to it, and you really need to trust your contractors, the ones that are doing the manual J's, that are doing an energy audit. It's a process, and we feel like we have provided a really good resource on our website for finding a contractor, but we also have an electrification page. I know Rich was gonna share that, and we have some resources that show like it's customer facing, so it's homeowner facing. This is what you can do to electrify, and soon we will be having, once the IRA is decided in Michigan and how that's going to be administered, then we'll have some more information about that. So we want you to think of Michigan Saves not only as your green bank that can help you out, but also a resource for financing. And I really appreciate and thank you for the time, Rich. Right.
Thank you, Mac. We're gonna do Q&A now. Do you want to just switch to my slide? Give me 1 second. All right, if you could turn in your cards. Okay, and we got I think we're going to switch back and forth between those submitted through Zoom and those submitted here. But why don't we start with one that we got from the live audience? Melanie, you want to ask a question? And actually, Kevin and Mac, why don't you both come on up here? Let's do it that way. And Evie, you are muted.
I have a question.
No, I am not.
I mean, I can just say from, yeah. Yep. Just from my experience, everybody sees green dollars and cents all the same. So the argument really, or the comments aren't about climate change or anything to do with the environment. It has to do with it's going to save you energy, or save you money, not energy.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback onto what I said before. Everyone wants a comfortable home, and a comfortable home equals energy efficiency. Energy efficiency does not equal comfortable. So even when I first got into this, some of the folks that first hired me were the most conservative folks you would meet. And they knew that building science was part of their construction process. And so they wanted their home to be comfortable, and they went down the road. I mean, some of them got it LEED certified because they wanted bragging rights too. So it's about the comfort.
Okay, next question. This one's for Evie. You mentioned that renters are eligible for rebates and credits under the IRA. Question, what has been your experience on how renters can take advantage of these, given, for example, that renters do not install solar panels or buy or install heating and cooling equipment?
That is a great question. And again, I'd refer you to our calculator too, to use that filter for everything that is technically available for renters. As a renter myself, both when I was living in South Bend and now I've relocated to New York City, I do it in small scales. I buy a little portable induction hot plate to put on top of my gas stove. We have on our Rewiring America huge Slack channel been messaging about an appliance that I'd love to hear the folks hear their perspective on. One that is a heat pump that has I'm blanking on the word right now, to a column that goes out through the window that you could install in your apartment too, and ask to have that main heating and cooling system turned off if you wanted to take it with you, because that is the biggest disadvantage, right? Of the property owner might not have that incentive, but there are many ways to work with the property owner for renters to make changes for the building at scale, and especially with the rebate program, rebates available. If a building has at least 50% of low income tenants, they will be eligible for those rebates. So there's a way to work with the property owner there too. So that's what we've seen so far. Of smaller take from home to home, that is possible. Again, that hot plate unfortunately isn't going to qualify for a rebate there, but it's much less expensive than an induction stove. But doing it small scales and then working as a community, if you are in a multifamily building, for example, can be another way.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
This is a question from the Zoom audience. It's a question from Mike for Kevin. He's asking what specifically is meant by air sealing. You mentioned air sealing all 6 sides of fiberglass. What does that mean?
So air sealing is when you're in your car and the windows are down and you roll a window up, you're air sealing the car. When you have a down coat on and you zip it up, you're air sealing the coat. When you put your hood up, you're air sealing around your. So all you're doing is you're stopping when there's a pressure against the house from wind, you're stopping that from coming into the house. And when it comes in, for every cubic foot of air that comes in, a cubic foot of air has to go out. So when the wind blows against your house, you're going to push conditioned air out. And then there's also, getting a little nerdy on the building science side of things, warm air rises, you have what's called a stack effect. And during the heating season, you have a pressure plane against your upper ceiling, and every penetration that you have in that ceiling is a spot for potential leakage. So think can lights, ceiling fans, exhaust fans, anything and it can be in the main level too. You have a stack effect there. So air sealing is plugging the holes that allow the air to leak to outside.
Okay, so this is a related question for you. Could you say more about how you can't seal up a house too much? Isn't a little leaking healthy?
So I spent a lot of years as a swimmer, and we always controlled when we breathed. And I spent a lot of years as a scuba diver. We control when we breathe. You want your house to do the same thing. If you can make the house 100% airtight to where it leaks 0, which is impossible to do, what you want to do is control the air that comes in, filter it, and try and capture as much of the conditioning as you can that's in the air, that's the stale air that's going out. So if we have holes in our house that are uncontrolled, we don't know where they are, we can't close them, we can't control when they open, it's up to Mother Nature when that house is going to be ventilated. So what we want to do is we want to control when that ventilation takes place, because there's times when we don't need it. I grew up, I am one of one of 8. So there are 10 of us in the house. Our ventilation requirements are significantly different than somebody that lives alone in a house or 2 people that live in a house. So you want to control it and you want to be able to adjust it accordingly. Yeah, so it can be as simple as a bath fan that turns on every now and again. That forces the house to leak. Or you can go down to an HRV or an ERV, a heat recovery ventilator or an energy recovery ventilator. That it is a thing. And what it does is it brings in outside air, and it, depending on the unit, but in general, it captures some of the heat or the cool before it gets exhausted outside and puts it in the air that's coming in. So now you have fresh, semi-conditioned air coming into the house. Your nose will tell you. There's standards. ASHRAE has a standard. There's standards for everything. But yeah, if it smells stuffy, you need more ventilation. You can do that, but there's times when you don't want to. Yes, there are times when you can open a window, but there are times when you might not want to open a window. So in the wintertime, you're not going to want to open a window to get fresh air in. So yeah, there's equipment out there to handle that.
Okay, there's a question from John for Evie. Is the 25D credit available for battery storage if you do not have solar?
Yes, that is a shift from the previous existing credit. So yes, it is.
Okay, this is for Michigan Saves. What is the source of funding for Michigan Saves?
So we partner with local credit unions. So we have a residential and a commercial side of our business. So let's just talk residential for a second. Is we go to local credit unions. So they're the ones that provide the capital. We provide that quasi insurance so that you can get lower rates and lower credit requirements. But Michigan Saves charges a fee to its contractors to use the financing, and that's what pays my salary. We also receive money from the state. This is just recent that we were in the state's budget. So we received money from the state, and that replenishes our loan loss reserve. So the capital is from the credit unions. We provide the insurance. There's some state funding, but most of it is from, our original funding source.
Okay, I think this question is addressed to all 3 of you. It's from Maggie, and she's saying, I'm ready to replace my furnace and I don't have an AC. I live in a condo. Are there possibilities for installing heat pumps at the moment? Or should I keep waiting for the tax rebate program to be finalized?
The rebates are not retroactive, so I would wait. I'm going to be doing a heat pump on my house, and I'm waiting until the rebates are available because, well, one, summer's almost over. I can do it in January, and the rebates are substantial, right? So if you had a $4,000 rebate for a heat pump on top of a $2,000 tax credit, there's a real benefit to waiting. Now the tax credits are retroactive, right? You can get those now. Yep.
Before we go on to the next question, we have a CCL member who has had some experiences trying to get a heat pump installed in his condo. David, do you want to mention? Yeah. Well, I want to make sure that on Zoom we're able to get. Maybe 20 minutes.
And I apologize, by the way.
Oh, we did not call ahead.
That's against all etiquette to wear the same thing, so I apologize. But no, I had an experience with trying to get a furnace in my condominium last December, January. And it was a bad experience because we had a particular setup. We have a utility closet where all the HVAC equipment has to go in, and you have to accommodate whatever you put in to that setup. Everything must go in there, and it's all set up for a gas furnace. And I came this close to being able to get it put in. A salesman told me I could, because we have our air conditioning units flush with the outside wall, 17 bricks removed in a checkerboard pattern for ventilation. And on the third try with a third contractor, he said, you can get rid of that air conditioner, put a side discharge heat pump there, and it'll work. Okay. I put 50% down. It was very expensive. I wasn't going to get any rebate because it was almost a year ago at this point. But when the installers came in, they looked at it and said, no, those 17 openings are not enough. You're not going to get enough airflow and you can't do it. So I had no choice at that point other than to put in a gas furnace. I'm still hoping that we can come up with some solution for the future. Unfortunately, I've got a furnace which is less than 1 year old now, and it breaks my heart to this day every time I think of it. But so my recommendation to the person who asked the question is make sure to check with your condo association board and find out what they can accommodate in their setup.
Right. And if I can project, could have placed that unit on the outside.
Yes.
But they rejected that aesthetic.
Yes, yes. Well, I knew they would to begin with, so that really wasn't an issue. The question was, could we accommodate it on the inside of the utility closet? And at first they were saying yes, and it turned out that the real answer was no. And I'm still trying to come up with some sort of accommodation that would please everybody. We have patios which maybe could accommodate a heat pump which wouldn't be visible from the outside. You know, I'm just brainstorming. Maybe you could help me.
Well, there is a lot of art that you can put around your exterior unit to hide it and make it look beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
This one says, can electric spot heaters economically supplement heat pumps in Michigan?
The short answer is no. I mean, once you go to that electric resistance. So electric resistance is, as Mac was saying, is the backup heat for when the heat pump can't keep up. When we get down into the you know, low teens, you know, 50 degrees, then you go to electric resistance. So now you're using basically a big toaster element to heat the house, or to supplement the heat of the heat pump for what little heat you can get out of it. Those are expensive to put in and they're expensive to run. So that is where air seal, insulate, and then get a cold climate heat pump. And those can provide, you know, it depends on the make and the model, but I have seen heat pumps that have efficiencies. They can provide 100% of the heat that they're rated at down to minus 13 degrees. And I don't remember the last time anywhere around here got down to minus 13. I'm sure it's happened, but I can't remember it.
Be clear, you're talking about air exchange pumps.
That is correct. Air to air.
Doesn't apply to geo exchange.
Right.
Because they're not so impacted, so they do heat transfer with fluid in there.
That is correct. But I will, my comment there will be, do your air sealing and insulation just as much with a geothermal unit, because they still struggle when the temperature gets down. They still struggle. Oh,
It's a question from Leah for Evie. What contractors do efficiency upgrades? Also, I think she's commenting that the rebates for efficiency come later, even though we should do it first.
Can you repeat that question? What contractors do efficiency upgrades?
Yeah, which contractors would sort of
Oh,
do the
I've
efficiency?
referred to our local experts here to refer you. Michigan Save seems to have a great tool.
Yeah, so typically all your envelope measures, well, not all, but insulation companies, right? They're the contractors that will do the insulation and air sealing. You know, window and door companies can do the windows and doors, and That's pretty much it, right? As far as the envelope measures that you would do, all of those contractors are available at michigansaves.org, and you click find a contractor.
This question is for Evie. Is there a lot of electricity saving going from an old-fashioned coil burner electric stove to an induction stove?
That particular switch we call our luxury upgrade, as in it's a nicer cooking experience, but the climate, cost saving benefits, energy savings are probably the least of all of the upgrades that we talked about. So again, I'd refer back to our experts here who have seen it, or Michigan Saves if you have particular financing products for that switch at all, but not as significant as the other switches that you can make.
This is another air sealing question for Kevin. How do you air seal around can lights?
So the question, yeah, so air sealing around can lights, it's going to kind of depend on where their location is. So again, you want to air seal all the walls, all the outlets. So my strategy on the main level of the house, let's just say there's conditioned space above, is caulk the can light to the drywall. Or if you can replace it, they have LED that look like can lights that are a surface mount. So then now you're getting into where you don't have to air seal around it. If it's up in the attic and you have a can light that penetrates into the attic, you can put you got to know what kind of can it is. If it's a can that's approved for insulation contact, but you can put a hat over it, just something to hold back the insulation, and then air seal around that, and then insulate over the top of that. To Mac's earlier point, insulation contractor will know how to do that.
I think I'm not exactly sure who to direct this question to, but is putting in better windows when you have single pane windows eligible for any credits or rebates?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's an envelope item. It's going to be eligible. It depends on, they've got to be Energy Star rated windows, but they are also eligible for tax credits. They will also, I'm not sure on the rebates. We'll have to wait until Michigan comes out with their adoption of the guidance that came out, but the envelope measures are included in the tax credit. So yes. And single pane windows are, that's going to be a good upgrade.
Okay, this is a question from Mac. I think someone took a look at Michigan Saves and they see that there are relatively few contractors with the Michigan Saves badges, at least for Washtenaw County, especially Ann Arbor. And do you see more contractors joining?
Yes. And, like I said earlier, the reason why contractors are going to join is because they're getting leads. And as more people are going to be doing electrification, I feel like we'll have more of a contractor base that lines up. But the ones that are on there now are the really good ones. They're the ones that are the cutting edge, right? They're the ones that are typically doing things first. They're like early adopters, right? And they're by far the best contractors. I think everybody that comes on later is going to be, hey, I want leads. I mean, we're still going to put them through the process, but there are a few contractors. I think we only have 25 throughout the entire state.
Kevin, you mentioned insulating interior walls question mark. So could you talk more about that?
So no, not insulating interior walls, although that's a great sound deadener, but air sealing your interior walls. So if you're familiar with construction, or if you just stand in your house and you look at outlets that go around all the walls, you have a wire that goes around there too. And when they put wiring in, the wire is only say 3/8 of an inch wide, but they use a 3/4 inch drill bit. So you have a little highway that allows air to move from your exterior walls around and in your interior walls. So, and it's not only in the walls, but also in the ceilings. You have a virtual expressway of ways for air to move through the house.
Okay, yeah, I think someone on Zoom asked a similar question, like why do we need to seal the inside walls? They don't leak to the outdoors, but I think you explained it. Yeah, I think as far as Zoom's concerned, that's the last question. There's a comment for Ken to the Michiganders in the audience. And he's explaining that the HRA rebates are not expected to be available till October 2024.
Last one for Kevin. For insulation in a conventional house exterior wall, what is the preferred type of insulation? This would be for existing residents.
So I guess it depends on what you're doing. So, do you have a project where the drywall is coming off? So all insulation works when it is installed correctly. So fiberglass bat works just as well as closed cell spray foam on an R value basis. The problem is having them installed correctly, and fiberglass bat is one of the most technical installs by way of insulation because it can't be compressed and it has to fill the cavity left to right, front to back, and top to bottom. So if you're doing a project where the drywall is coming off, as long as the insulation is installed correctly and air sealed around it, it'll work. If you are not removing drywall or plaster or whatever, if you don't have access to that cavity, then it's going to be a drill and fill, which is they drill a hole, put a tube in, and fill it with either cellulose or fiberglass. That's pretty much, I know that there's advertising out there for a pour in place foam, but I've seen that where after the drywall comes off, and I don't know if they installed it incorrectly, but it was very cracked and powdery. So I prefer to stick with with a drill and fill with cellulose or fiberglass insulation.
Thank you very much. All right. So have you? Can't see anything. Okay. All right. Just to wrap things up. Oh, where'd we go? Hold on, I thought we had it. Yeah. Okay. We got it? Okay. All right. To wrap things up, we wanted to just fill you in on a couple of a few different events and programs that are going on. One that's coming up at the end of September is the Michigan Clean Energy Future Day of Action. This is sounded very exciting. It's in Lansing. It's a full day of action that includes a climate rally, a festival, speakers, live music, food, and most important, direct engagement with our state legislatures. The festivities will take place on the Capitol lawn. If you want to become more informed of all of the different legislation that they're trying to pass, and there's a lot, okay, too much to go through here. But this QR code or this URL here will take you to, among other things, a series of articles that will fill you in on this information. It's fairly comprehensive. I will mention that you're going to see the same QR code through some of the other slides that I'm about to show. The one thing that I forgot to put on there was the URLs of all of our speakers. So that will be on there within a couple of hours if you just want to wait to retrieve it. So next slide. This is something that CCL is actually, could you go back to the previous one? Okay, contact information. One of the things that you'll see there is no contact information here on how to learn more about the event, but you'll find that through the page that takes you this QR code takes you to. If you want to stay involved with CCL's initiative regarding this event, we ask you to reach out to our email address to just let us know that you're interested, and we'll get back to you on that. Okay, next slide. All right. Has anybody here ever had the experience of calling in and leaving a recorded message to one of their elected officials, especially through CCL's program to do this? Okay. All right. It's super easy. If you have an issue that you want to address with one of your elected officials, and it's an environmental issue, this is the way to do it. You will go to cclusa.org, and in this case /PR for permitting reform. This is the current initiative that our national group is working on primarily. It's to improve the permitting that we have. They passed some a year ago, but it wasn't comprehensive enough. This primarily is involved in boosting and accelerating transmission projects, because there's a lot of renewable energy developers that are out there, and they're ready to do the projects, but they can't get the transmission lines to get the power to where it needs to go. It'll involve earlier community feedback, and it'll speed up the pace of building and deploying new clean energy projects. If you go to this, you put in your address, it'll identify your member of Congress, and of course your 2 senators, and it'll send out a call. You leave a message. Nobody's going to be keeping notes while you're talking. Okay, we're asking you questions. You're just a voice. And I will tell you, you may feel like a number doing this. Numbers count. They've got somebody on the other end of that call that is recording this, finding out what issues are most important to their constituents. So the more you call, the better it is. Slide. All right, we have 2 action teams. One is the Building Electrification Efficiency Action Team. This program was put together by that action team, and we will be doing more. We are looking to expand into other ways to educate the community on energy efficiency and electrification, and how to do it affordably. If you're interested in that, for those who are on Zoom, just send me an email on that. We'll get back to you. For those that are here, you can do that as well, or we have a table there with a form in which just fill it out, and we'll get back to it that way. There's also the Healthy Forest Action Team, which promotes tree planting and tree preservation, both locally and beyond. That includes internationally. By the way, their next meeting is October 6th on Zoom. They're also going to have a tree planting in partnership with the Huron River Watershed Council. Location and time are listed here. Barbara Lucas can help you, or you can fill out an inquiry over here as well. And then finally on this, A20's Green Fair is going to be Friday, September 22nd from 5 to 8 on Main Street. Next. The last thing I'm giving you here are some resources, some handouts that our partners in this provided, both from Michigan Saves and Rewiring America. Again, if you go to this QR code, you will get links to all of this information, whether it's about electrifying your home, or you might be affiliated with a nonprofit. You might be interested in what's available for local governments or small businesses. So with that, is there any other questions that anybody has here? Well, with that, we will close the session. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all of your questions. If you get a chance, check out the back table.